I'm Portia. This is my wife, Ellen.
Hi.
And
We've been together for 16 years. We've been married for 12 years. But the last time you were on the program, you surprised me for my birthday.
Yes, I did.
Which I was completely surprised.
I've changed so much as a person since I've met Ellen. I used to think that the way to be strong was to be tough.
Medications in her system. Medicines commonly used to treat post-traumatic stress disorder and bipolar disorder. This wasn't new to her family. They had walked beside her through it all, from doctor visits, therapy, and medications to hospital stays. But to the public, they were news that not many people knew and understood deeply. Even when Naomi was alive, she talked about mental illnesses and tried to raise awareness about them. The presence of those medications didn't mean she wasn't trying. In fact, it showed the opposite. Naomi had been fighting through it all to survive, but some battles are just heavier than others. The days that followed were filled with confusion for fans. How could someone so successful, so celebrated, so close to receiving a career-crowning honor be in such agony? But those who knew Naomi and those who had read her memoirs weren't as surprised. They knew this wasn't about one bad day. They understood that her action was a result of decades of struggle. Ashley later spoke out, not just to share her heartbreak, but to educate others about mental illness, about trauma, and about the compassion that's needed when someone is suffering in silence. She talked about that moment in the house when she saw her mother give up the ghost in her arms. She didn't reveal such vulnerable emotions just for headlines, but because it mattered. Even with the world crashing down around them, the show didn't stop, literally. Just one day after Naomi Judd's tragic passing, Winona and Ashley attended the Country Music Hall of Fame ceremony as scheduled, where Naomi was posthumously inducted alongside her daughter Winona as part of the Judds, one of country music's most iconic duos. And yet, there they were, Winona and Ashley, standing on that stage, dressed in black, their eyes puffy with grief, their voices shaking but steady. Ashley addressed the audience, saying, "Today we sisters experience a tragedy. We lost our beautiful mother to the disease of mental illness." She spoke candidly about the pain of losing their mother and the importance of recognizing mental illness as a serious issue that shouldn't be taken for granted. Winona, tearful yet composed, expressed her heartbreak and gratitude, saying, "Though my heart is broken, I will continue to sing." She made a promise to carry on her mother's legacy through music, a vow that resonated deeply with fans and attendees alike. Both sisters went on to recite Psalm 23 to close off their speech. But the thing that cut the deepest wasn't just the grief. It was the timing. Naomi had held on for decades through the fame, the darkness, and the battles with depression. And the day before the world was set to honor her, that's when she left. In the days that followed, both sisters continued to advocate for mental health awareness, sharing their experiences and encouraging others to seek help. But just when you thought things couldn't get any worse, life threw another blow, one that no one saw coming. After Naomi's death, the police were called to the scene, as is standard with any sudden or unexplained death. What the family didn't know, what no one thought to warn them about, was that every moment, every word, every breath spoken in those raw, grief-drenched minutes was being recorded. The officers, doing their job, documented everything from Ashley's emotional state, her interactions, and her attempt to hold herself together as her world shattered. All of it was logged. But here's where things turned sideways. Those recordings weren't just filed away. No, they were now part of the public record, meaning anyone on the media, the internet, and even total strangers could access them. And that's exactly what happened. When Ashley found out, she broke down, and not in a way that you'd think. She went into full-body shock, active trauma response, and acute distress all at once. She wasn't just a daughter in mourning anymore. She felt like she was being watched, dissected, and judged by people who had no business inserting themselves into her pain. The world now had access to one of the most vulnerable moments of her life, the moment she lost her mom. She described it later as being ripped open again. She had been trying to stay strong, to hold the family together while going through her own grief. But this was different. This was a complete violation of her privacy and vulnerability. Her private trauma had been turned into public entertainment. That was when she and her family decided to take matters into their own hands legally. The Judd family, who were already deep in mourning, had to pivot into fight mode. All they wanted to do was to grieve in peace. They filed a lawsuit to block the release of those police interviews, including the recordings and any photographs taken at the scene. Some things are just too sacred to be shared, and the moments immediately following the loss of a loved one, that should never be for public consumption. But what they didn't realize was that taking the videos and recordings off the public wouldn't be as easy as they had imagined, because Tennessee laws were not exactly on their side. According to the public records laws in the state, anyone is entitled to access a lot more than people realize. So while the Judds were pleading for compassion and privacy, the legal system was asking questions about transparency and freedom of information. And that's where things got murky. While the family wanted to get justice to protect their privacy, the media saw an opportunity to make headlines. They circled like sharks, hungry for updates, eager to see whether grief would win over public interest. At one point, the family wasn't even sure if they could keep the details of Naomi's final moments protected. After the final hearing on September 8th of that same year, the family's lawsuit was dismissed after some media houses withdrew their request for Naomi's photos on the day of her passing. Just when you think the story couldn't get any more heartbreaking, more layers begin to unfold. Remember the farewell letter Naomi left behind? While most of the contents remained mostly private, what slipped through the cracks was enough to leave everyone stunned. One of the most shocking details was Naomi's request that Winona not attend her funeral. Now that was a shocker. This left fans and family alike grappling with confusion and grief. How did Winona take that? We might not know, but what we do know is that it would have broken her heart. How do you mourn your mother when her final words strictly forbid you from being at her funeral? Behind the scenes, the family was breaking in very different ways. Larry Strickland, Naomi's husband of over 3 decades, spoke through tears about her final days. He remembered her quietness. He described it as a faraway look in her eyes that didn't feel like her. And still, he never saw it coming. Ashley and Winona, those sisters, handled the tragedy differently. Ashley leaned more into advocacy, transparency, and speaking out about mental illness and what it took from them. Winona, on the other hand, grieved emotion as she continued singing, touring, basically holding tightly to the only thing that made sense anymore, music. And that wasn't all that was revealed. Hidden within probate court filings and later confirmed publicly was that Naomi had once fired a gun at Larry during a fight over infidelity. Yes, really. This just went on to show that Naomi, in her own right, was just as human as can be. Even though her life was cut short, her voice touched many and cannot be forgotten in a hurry. Naomi Judd was America's heart, not only because she sang, but also because she carved out a legacy that refused to be boxed by the fame, the charts, or even the tragedy she faced. While she was alive, long before her final days made headlines, Naomi had already become a force. Not only was she much older than her peers in country music, but she also took her daughter along with her, allowing Winona to blossom into the successful musical icon she is today, especially in a genre that often left women in the background. Naomi stepped up, took center stage, and paved the way for the next generation of female country stars, who now stand proudly on the foundation she helped build. But perhaps her most powerful act came behind the cameras and offstage. In a society that often demands silence around mental health, Naomi did the opposite. She spoke up, wrote about it, and stood in front of cameras, in interviews, and on stages and peeled back the curtain on her long battle with depression and anxiety. And best believe she didn't do all that just to get pity or attention. She wanted to create a safe space for others, even though that space wasn't enough for her. Her willingness to be vulnerable gave people a chance to do the same. After Naomi's death, Winona could have stopped singing, or she stepped away from the spotlight and disappeared into grief. But instead, she did the one thing her mom would have wanted, which is to keep going. She went on tour in Naomi's honor, singing the songs they once sang together, standing under those stage lights alone. Ashley, ever the advocate, continued to fight her mom once championed. She's been vocal about mental health policy, education, and support. The sisters have backed campaigns and initiatives in Naomi's memory, working with foundations to raise awareness and funding for those suffering silently, just as their mother once did. And it wasn't just family carrying her name forward. After the news broke, tributes poured in like a river. Reba McEntire called her one of the strongest women I ever knew. Dolly Parton said, "She sang like an angel and loved like a warrior." Artists across genres, from Casey Musgraves to Carrie Underwood, also share how Naomi's music shaped their childhoods and inspired their journeys. Naomi Judd's story is sad and heavy, but it's also full of light, because her life didn't end the night she died. It continued in every song that still plays on radio, in every fan who holds her lyrics close, and every person now unafraid to speak their truth because she spoke hers first. Which of her songs do you still listen to this day? Let us know in the comments. Do well to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell on our channel so you never miss any of our uploads. Click on the next video on your screen to watch more videos like this one.